The city of Lamora had always been a place of ambition, steel, and restless dreams. Towering skyscrapers reflected the golden sun by day and neon fire by night. But beneath its shining surface, shadows curled around every corner. Crime festered in alleyways, corruption grew in offices, and whispers of strange events unsettled the calm. No one yet realized that something far larger than politics or crime was approaching. Among the people of Lamora lived Elias Verdun, a quiet man in his late 20s. He worked as an apprentice engineer at a struggling repair shop. His hands were skilled, but his spirit often felt fractured. Elias carried the grief of a childhood tragedy, the mysterious disappearance of his parents. Raised by his grandmother, he had grown cautious, observant, and somewhat withdrawn. But Elias was no ordinary man. Deep within him, a dormant spark waited to awaken. A spark that was neither human nor entirely of this earth. One stormy evening, Lamora's sky split open with a roar of thunder unlike any before. A jagged crack of violet light cut across the heavens. People gathered in the streets, staring upward, whispering in fear. Elias too stepped out of the repair shop, his hands covered in grease, and froze. He felt the vibration in his bones, like the storm was calling his name. The lightning twisted unnaturally, coiling into a spiral before slamming into the city's old clock tower. The explosion shook the ground, and everyone screamed. But as the smoke cleared, Elias saw something no one else could. A faint shimmering figure emerged from the wreckage, only visible to his eyes. It was tall, armored in radiant silver, with a mask that looked like carved crystal. The figure spoke directly into his mind. "Atheron, the time has come." Elias staggered back, clutching his head. "I don't understand," he whispered. But the figure only said, "You are chosen. The fracture grows. Accept or perish." And then it vanished. That night Elias could not sleep. His dreams swirled with visions of burning skies, shattered towers, and monstrous creatures crawling out of rifts. He woke drenched in sweat, heart racing. When he looked at his hands, they glowed faintly with strands of violet energy. The next day, strange things began to happen. A mugger attacked a woman near Elias's shop. Elias, without thinking, raised his hand. A bolt of violet light leapt from his palm, striking the mugger's knife and shattering it. The man fled in terror. And the woman ran away too, screaming. Elias stared at his hand, horrified. What am I?" he whispered. Word of the glowing man spread quickly in the neighborhood. Some dismissed it as rumor, others as a hoax. But in the dark chambers of Lamora's ruling elite, someone was listening carefully. Victor Droll, CEO of Droll Industries, was one of the most powerful men in Lamora. Charismatic in public, ruthless in private, he had built his empire on both innovation and corruption. He was obsessed with rumors of otherworldly power. When reports of Elias's lightning reached him, his interest sharpened like a blade. He whispered to his advisors, "Find him. Bring me the source of this energy." Meanwhile, Elias struggled to keep his life normal. His grandmother noticed his restlessness. "Child, your eyes, they shine at night," she murmured. Elias hugged her, trembling, unable to explain. Days turned into weeks. Elias learned he could summon violet shields, leap impossible distances, and bend small objects with thought. But the powers came with pain, headaches, nosebleeds, sudden collapses. Every time he pushed himself, he felt closer to breaking apart. One evening, the shimmering figure returned. Elias demanded, "Why me? What are you?" The figure replied, "I'm Sentinel Horus, last guardian of the fractured sky. Long ago, your world was touched by a storm beyond the stars. Your blood carries its echo. You are the successor." Elias shook his head. "I'm not a hero. I fix broken radios. I can barely protect myself." Horus answered, "Precisely. Heroes are not born. They are forged." Soon after, Lamora faced its first true horror. A rift tore open in the marketplace, spilling out creatures made of shadow and static. People screamed as the monsters clawed at cars and glass. Elias stood frozen, until he saw a child trapped beneath debris. His fear turned into fire. With a roar, he unleashed a surge of energy, blasting the creatures apart. He lifted the debris effortlessly and carried the child to safety. The crowd stared in awe. Someone whispered, "Who is he?" Another shouted, "He's our protector." That was the night Elias became known as Atheron, the guardian of the fractured sky. But heroism had a price. Victor Droll watched recordings of the event and smiled coldly. "Yes," he said. "The boy will lead me to the storm." He began developing his own technology to harness reef energy. He called it Project Dominion. In the weeks that followed, Atheron became a legend. He stopped robberies, saved people from burning buildings, and fought back strange creatures spilling from minor reefs. Yet, inside, Elias was still uncertain. Every battle drained him more. He feared the power would consume him. "What if I lose control?" he asked Horus. Horus replied, "Control comes from purpose. You must choose who you fight for." Elias found purpose in the people. The little girl he had saved, named Mira, often brought him hand-drawn pictures of him flying through skies. Her belief strengthened him. His grandmother told him, "The city needs light, Elias. Maybe you are that light." But shadows grew darker. Victor Droll completed his first prototype, a sword powered by artificial reef crystals. When he first wore it, his body nearly burned from the energy. But Droll endured, laughing as lightning danced across his armor. "If the boy is Atheron," he said, "then I will be Dominion." Dominion's first attack was merciless. He unleashed drones across Lamora, each carrying fragments of reef energy. Buildings cracked, streets split, and creatures poured out like nightmares made flesh. Atheron fought desperately. But for every reef he sealed, another opened. Then Dominion appeared, towering in his armored suit, glowing like a demon of steel. "We are alike, boy," Dominion thundered. "But unlike you, I will not waste this gift on the weak." Their clash shook Lumorous skyline. Atheron fought bravely. But Dominion's suit amplified his every strike. In the end, Elias lay broken on the ground, bleeding, barely conscious. Dominion spared him only to deliver a message: "Join me, or watch your city die." For days after, Elias was bedridden. His grandmother tended to him with tears in her eyes. "Elias, you cannot fight him alone," she pleaded. But Elias whispered, "If not me, then who?" Slowly, he rose again. He trained his body harder, pushed his powers further. He sought allies among the people he had saved. Some engineers, inspired by him, built gadgets to aid his missions. Even Myra's father, once a skeptic, became his informant. Atheron was no longer just a lone hero, he was the heart of a movement. Dominion escalated his campaign. He kidnapped scientists, stole ancient relics, and forced numerous leaders into silence. Every victory brought him closer to opening a permanent rift. Horus warned Elias, "If Dominion succeeds, your world will drown in the storm." The final battle came on a night of violet skies. Dominion stood at the top of Lamora Tower, the tallest building in the city. Around him, machines pulsed with energy, tearing open a massive rift in the sky. Lightning poured down like rivers of fire. The city shook, alarms wailed, and people fled in terror. Atheron arrived, battered but unbroken. He stared up at Dominion and shouted, "This ends tonight." Dominion laughed. "Yes. For you." Their battle raged across rooftops, shattering glass and splitting concrete. Dominion's suit crackled with overwhelming force. Atheron's every strike burned his veins with pain. But he refused to yield. Dominion sneered, "You are weak because you fight for them." Elias gasped, "No. I am strong because of them." With a final surge, Elias unleashed everything within him. His body became a living storm, violet light blazing across the sky. The rift above began to collapse, pulled inward by his power. Dominion screamed, his suit overloading. "No! This is mine." But the storm consumed him, ripping his armor apart and casting him into the abyss. The rift sealed with a thunderous clap. Silence followed, broken only by the distant cheers of the people below. Atheron collapsed to his knees, barely breathing. Horus's voice whispered one last time, "Well done, Guardian." But the storm is not yet gone. Then Horus faded forever. Elias survived, though his body bore scars of lightning that would never fade. He stood at the edge of Lamora Tower, looking over the battered but living city. Fire crews worked, people embraced, and children pointed up at him with shining eyes. For the first time, Elias felt not fear, but peace. He knew who he was now. Not just Elias Verdun, the repairman. Not just Atheron, the storm's guardian. He was hope, forged from fracture. Months passed, and Lamora began to rebuild. Murals of Atheron appeared on walls. Songs were written about the night the sky almost fell. Elias continued to protect the city. Though he lived quietly when unmasked, he never sought fame. All he wanted was to ensure the people of Lamora never again felt abandoned. Yet, in the deep ocean, far from Lamora, a broken piece of Dominion's armor glowed faintly. From within, a voice whispered, "The storm has only begun." Epilogue. And so the legend of Atheron grew. He was not perfect, not invincible, not untouchable. But he was real. A man who chose to fight when no one else could. A man who bore the storm so others could see the dawn. The story of Atheron did not end with Dominion's fall. For every shadow cast, there is light. And in the fractured sky above Lamora, hope still burns, violet, eternal, and unyielding. Elias continued his dual life, repairman by day, protector by night. But the strain weighed heavily on him. He often came home bruised and bleeding, hiding it from his grandmother. She was not fooled. "You carry too much alone," she told him one night. Elias simply kissed her hand and said, "It's the only way." Mira, the little girl he once saved, became his biggest supporter. She would sneak drawings into his mailbox, Atheron flying, smiling, standing tall. Her faith kept him grounded. Whenever doubt clouded his mind, he remembered her laughter. But whispers spread of new reefs opening beyond Lamora. Other cities reported strange phenomena. Some feared this was the beginning of a global crisis. Governments debated whether Atheron was a savior or a threat. News channels argued endlessly about his origin. Is he alien? Mutant? A weapon? They asked. Elias tried not to listen. Yet, deep inside, he felt the storm was not finished. Oris's final words haunted him, "The storm is not yet gone." What did it mean? Was Dominion truly destroyed? Or merely waiting? Elias could not know. He found unlikely allies in ordinary citizens. An ex-cop named Joran offered to feed him police intel. A hacker named Celine helped him track strange energy surges. Slowly, he was building a network, people who believed in Atheron. Dominion, however, was not gone. In the abyss of the rift, he had survived, twisted but alive. The storm had fused with him, reshaping his body into something inhuman. His voice grew darker, his ambition fiercer. "Atheron stole my crown," he whispered. "But I will return as its god." Back in Lamora, Elias began dreaming again. Visions of fire across oceans, storms tearing continents apart. And in those dreams, a shadow stood, wearing Dominion's mask. Elias woke with dread, knowing the war was far from over. The city, however, continued to celebrate him. Children wore cardboard masks of Atheron. Graffiti artists painted him as a guardian angel. For the people, he was a symbol. But for Elias, he was simply a man carrying a burden too great. One night, he stood atop Lamora Tower, staring at the fractured moonlight. "If Dominion returns, will I be ready?" he asked the sky. The wind offered no answer. But Elias clenched his fists, violet sparks dancing across his palms. "Then I'll keep fighting until my last breath." Far away, in the silence of the abyss, Dominion's laughter echoed. The storm churned once more. The story of Atheron was not the story of victory. It was the story of resilience. The story of a man who rose, fell, and rose again. A man forged by lightning, tempered by pain, and guided by hope. And though the fractured sky loomed eternal, so too did the light within him. For every ending was only the beginning of another storm. Thus, the chronicles of Lamora began. With Atheron's rise, the city found not perfection, but courage. And courage, Elias knew, was the only true power that could outlast the storm. The storm will come again. The rifts will widen. Dominion will return. But when that day arrives, Lamora will not be afraid. Because they know Atheron will stand. Broken or whole, weary or strong, he will stand. And the world will remember that when the sky shattered, a man rose from the fracture to hold it together. His name was Elias Verdun. His legend was Atheron. And his story had only just begun.